Hello and welcome back to Anthropology for 15593. It is Monday of week 11. We are almost done with the semester. Remember, in this class, you only have 10 discussion boards, 10 quizzes, and 8 homeworks. And this week, you are having your last homework number 8. You're also having your penultimate, your next to last discussion board, as well as quiz number 8. So there's only 2 more quizzes after this. So no more homeworks, 1 more discussion board, and 2 more quizzes after this week. And you'll be moving on to the project sides of your paper and your presentation and posters. So that will be very exciting. You'll have a lot more time to work on it, so you won't have to be worrying about these things. So this week we're going to do cultural domain analysis. Welcome to our class on cultural domain analysis. This is one of my favorite units. I never get to do it. It's always been grouped with survey before, and it's always kind of gotten the short end of the stick. When we've always kind of just done a day with it and spent the rest of the time on the survey. I think it'll be more fun because this is actually one of my favorite types of methods to give it its own weeks. That's why I split it up. And we'll be looking at different types of cultural domain analysis this week, starting with free list today. We're going to do pile sorts on Wednesday. And then on Friday, we'll do sentence frames, triad tests, paired compositions, rank order. We might get to a couple of those today. We'll see how much time we have. Okay. So we're also going to get started on your last homework. It's going to be a today and Wednesday kind of thing. We're going to do step 1 and 2 for that today. So I'm going to hand these out and you can take a look. You could have already seen these on Canvas, but if you haven't, you'll be all right. All right. So we're going to do step part 1 and part 2 in class today, and then on Wednesday we'll do 3 and 4 and see about 5. We'll get there, and you might have to do that one on your own. Okay, so this is our second week talking about structured interviews, and our third week kind of talking about interviews overall. It's a big part of your methods in ethnography. But there's a lot of difference. And some people will ask, like, what's the difference between an informal interview and a survey? And hopefully at this point, especially after the quiz question last week, you have a good idea. What is the difference between an informal interview and survey? Okay.
Informal interview, you set enough idea about where you want to go. Survey, you're just asking them a set list of questions.
And so what are some cases you might want to use a survey over an interview or a semi-structured interview? Yeah. Yeah. For a survey. Yep. Yeah. Why else might what are some of the methodological reasons you might want to do a survey? What do you think, Megan? Yeah, right. So it can be anonymous. If I'm giving you an interview, it could be confidential, but it's hard to make it anonymous, right? Unless we do like the priest confessioner thing and put a wall between us. So I can't see your gender or your age or anything like that. Another reason you might want to do it is you might want to send out lots of them or do lots of surveys, right? Your interviews, you could maybe do, if you really hit it hard, maybe Bernard says 200, but I think that's crazy. I think maybe 100 a year if you were really into it, you'd get real burned out. But surveys, you can do thousands or even tens of thousands in a year if you're doing internet or mailed out surveys. You could even do the whole country if you're the U.S. Census. In a way that when I worked for the Census Bureau back in early college, we were going to survey every person in Orlando, but we weren't going to do that door to door. Only I think 1% of people got chosen for a follow-up survey interview. It just couldn't be done, with the 50 or 60 people we had in our precinct ward to interview everybody. So there's lots of reasons why you might want to do a survey, a more structured form of interviewing. We're going to look at structured interviewing. Part 2 is what he calls it, cultural domain analysis today. And unlike surveys, well, they're kind of like surveys, but they're kind of not, right? In some ways, they are very similar in that one of the main benefits of a survey is that all the participants are getting the same inputs, right? They're getting the same stimuli. And you're hoping to keep that constant. Versus in an informal interview, we can go in different directions, right? You say something really interesting and we'll follow that thread versus the next person I ask about, where did you grow up? It was kind of like a boring, there's nothing to that answer, or something like that, and there's no thread to follow. Versus in a survey or in these cultural domain analysis, we're going to give you the same types of questions for each participant in order to hold that constant. Okay, so that's kind of how they're similar, but they are different in a number of ways. Like an informal interview, a cultural domain analysis doesn't have as many people as a survey, right? A survey is going to have hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of people usually in order to get a representative sample of the population or just ask everybody. But you can't do that in a cultural domain analysis. In some ways, it's like an interview in that it takes a little bit longer and it's more intensive on your end. So you're not going to be able to do it for tons of people. Right? It's more for a focus group. Also, kind of like a survey, it grows out of informal interviews and participant observations. That's where you kind of mine your raw data, which are going to help you know what's an important question and what isn't. On the other hand, though, we're going to be focused on a particular aspect. And that's kind of a little different maybe from the other things, right? Cultural domain analysis are about getting people to think about the relationships between a certain class of objects, right? Or things, or people, ideas, places, anything like that, right? And so what we're going to do today is we're going to start with step 1, and you're going to identify a cultural domain that works for your project, right? So we'll think about that. What kinds of things might work for a cultural domain, right? Unlike surveys, which ask you about your attitudes or your preferences, right? What do you think about, President Biden? Good or bad? What do you think about raising taxes in eastern New Mexico to pay for the pipeline? Is that a good idea? Is that a bad idea? Okay. Or even practices. How much water do you specifically use? Do you use 50 gallons, 100 gallons? Do you water your yard? These are not kind of questions that we can answer with the cultural domain analysis. Instead, what we're looking for is the relationships between things in a group. So what kind of things can be in a group? The classic cultural domain analysis and ethnography, often, I think the very first ones were with plants and animals, right? How do different plants go together? Or how do different animals go together? I've done it in my research for food. How do different types of foods go together? You can think about people. How do people in this community go together? How do you sort them into different subgroups, right? How do you do places, right? Which places are more alike than others? So any kind of thing like that, right? It's got to have like a noun that groups them together, right? So how do you think about blank? How do you think about these people in your village? How do you think about the animals that you farm? How do you think about the plants that you might harvest from the jungle? How do you think about the different types of foods that you might eat, right? So they're all kind of, how do you think about blank? And it's not going to be, how do you use blank, right? How do you use these medicinal plants? It's not what we're really interested in. Or what kind of food did you eat yesterday? I don't really care about that, right? What I'm interested in is what counts and what doesn't count as food, and how maybe those foods or whatever you're studying relate to each other. Okay? So think about for a moment, what are some kind of things think about your research question first, and think about what are some cultural domains you might start to study. You can think about this in class while we're doing it today. So that's going to be step 1, is to identify a domain. And if we get to, I think if we have time, I'm going to hopefully get to step 2, where you're going to free list with each other. So you'll need to start thinking about a type of domain. And why cultural domain analysis is interesting is there's lots of ways that you can cut up the world, right? I can say, for instance, colors. How do you group colors? And this is the famous, if you remember back, I think you're all intro to cultural, right? Famous Berlin case study. They showed like a months-old chart of colors. Months-old. There we go. Open link, open image. There we go. So it showed people a bunch. This is 1963 through 1975 or 1980 or so. They did what's called the World Colors Survey, and they were interested in how people divide the world up into different colors. Okay? Seems simple. How do we divide the world up into colors? What are our colors? Yeah, the rainbow colors, right? Red, orange, yellow, green, blue. Does anyone like indigo? I feel like indigo always gets shorted. Indigo, purple, violet. Right? I kind of feel like indigo and violet maybe nobody likes them as much, but I prefer them. So we got 7 colors. Yeah, it's completely obvious. But is it? Right? When we see a rainbow, show me a picture of a rainbow. Not a word rainbow. There we go. Not the like drawn version of a rainbow, but an actual picture of a rainbow. How many colors are there? Are there 7 distinct colors? Or could you cut it in different ways? You could. It depends on your perspective, and that's what we're doing in class this week, right? The world out there, the real world, in all its different forms, is like a rainbow, right? It's a natural phenomenon that occurs, this is a philosophical question. Do rainbows occur if no one's there to see them? Probably, right? You need eyes to see them, right? Because it's a refraction of, but animals maybe could see them or something like that, right? There is a natural phenomenon out there in the world. And we as human beings cut it up. And as good cultural anthropologists, we know that different cultures are going to do it differently, right? If not, we wouldn't have a profession. It would just be the study of how all humans are, but we're really interested in these differences. So we've talked about one way you can cut it up in our normal everyday American view of colors. We could cut it into red, green, orange, yellow, indigo, violet, purple, violet, I guess. Right, 7 different colors. What are some other ways we could cut that pie up, cut that rainbow up? What do you think, Ethan? Warm colors and cool colors, right? We could have 2 kinds of colors. Where would we make that cut? We're right in the middle of green, maybe. Somewhere right there. Yeah, somewhere between yellow and green, right? These are the hot ones. These are the cool ones. Is there any other ways we could cut that up? Could you have more than 7? Yeah, right. You could have really fine-grained distinctions, like maybe there's like far, almost pseudo-infrared. It's almost like the kind of brown red or black red. Or over here towards the edge of purple, where you're getting towards ultraviolet, you might see another color, right? Or you might group things together differently, right? You might have red and orange grouped together, or you might be like a Maya and group blue and green together, right? Lots of different things. Fun fact, did you know that little kids can see further into the purple end of the color spectrum than adults? Like a wild fact to me. I learned this as a parent. So if you have something written in like black light ink, your baby can see it, even though you can't see it, because you lose those color receptors as you get older. Secret codes for babies. I don't know. Fun fact, I don't know if you ever need that knowledge. But that's what they did. They basically took the Munsell chart and they asked people to cut it up. Where do you divide colors, right? You could pick of this chart lots of different ways to cut it up, right? You could pick lots, and you could pick 50 different colors. You could pick 2 colors. You could center your colors. They ask people to center. Where, not only how many colors do you have, but where is the center of that color? You could pick one here, you could pick one here, here. That's kind of normal, right? That's what we would expect in anthropology. And based on kind of our understanding of human nature and cultures, we would expect people to pick lots of different things. Cultures on different sides of the world would probably pick different types of ideas. But what's really weird is that people tend to pick the same kinds of things. So they tend to be clustered around the same parts of the heat map. And let's see if I can find a better picture. Yeah, there you go. Right, so people pick the same kinds, it's not a great picture, of colors, and that there was only like a certain order that people picked colors. So if people only had one color, it would be white. Once you add a second color, it would be a light and dark. And then with white, dark, and red, yellow and green are next. And then blue, then brown, then orange, purple, gray, pink, and purple, right? So there seemed to be some kind of underlying pattern going on. So this became a thing in cultural anthropology and linguistics, especially. A lot of stuff you're going to see is from linguistics, because language is all about categorization. You can also do, other people have done things, yeah.
Some languages have like 20 different words for snow, and other languages only have like maybe one around.
Or not even, right? Because you don't ever have snow. Yeah, exactly. And so other things that people have done are with animals. Here's a picture of an animal. I don't even know what this picture is of. Let's see. Open image. How many different types of animals do you see in this picture? There are 8 different frames, I guess we could call them, samples. How many different kinds of animals do you see? You see 9 animals in 8 frames. Which ones? What was that? In B? Oh, in E. Oh, he's hugging him. No, it's not hugging him. I think they're eating him. 9 different animals? Okay. How many different kinds of animals do you see? What do you think? 4. What 4 kinds of animals do you see? Yeah, and you're going to group what? B and E together? And C, yeah? Cool. So 5 different kinds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Did anyone else group them together differently? A and F. Why? They're both fish, or they're both swimming creatures, right? And why did you group them differently, Ethan? Right? So you based it on like physiology, what's going on inside of the animal. You know that this is like a warm-blooded creature that gives birth to live young, has mammary glands, feeds their babies with milk, and this is an egg-laying, cold-blooded fish, right? But Megan, you group these together because they are both swimming creatures, right? So we can group them in different ways, form versus function, right? You could also maybe split up B and C. Why might I split B and C, right? I might keep B and E together, but split C off into its own group. What did we learn about in Origins of Human Diversity? What is C? Yeah, well, I think these are monkeys, actually. So monkeys versus apes, right? Well, these have a tail and these don't, or something like that, right? There's lots of characteristics that we talked about that you could group them together. What about D and H? Could we group those together? Why? What would be the common characteristic? They're flying creatures, right? What about a bat? If I put a picture of a bat in here, show me bat. Computer, show me bat. There's a bat. What category does he go with? Yes, all of them. Yeah. Yeah, flying males. What were you saying, Megan? You learn something new every day in class, right? There are different ways to cut these apart, and it's not just like a hypothetical exercise. And anthropologists go around the world. They have found that people actually do this. Some cultures will put bats. Bats are a classic example, right? Because they're weird. they fly, but they're mammals. We don't have a lot of those things. So they put them with birds. Some people put them with mammals, right? Same with a worm. Is a worm, some people put those as the same as like a reptile, like a lizard or a crocodile or something. Other people put those like with worms because they are slithery things without arms and legs. Similarly, the whale and the fish is another great example about how some cultures will group marine mammals with fish because they're all fish in the sea and we're fishermen and we hunt them all, versus other people will put them into this mammal category that's separate.
You know, the point of this exercise was just, off your bed when you reach there and look on the screen.
Yeah.
Just because if you think about it too much or just a little bit, it's too
yeah.
like you go out worms and you're like, oh, that is slippery.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are we actually trying to do? Like based on this activity, what do you think we're trying to do with all of this stuff? Why am I asking you? I mean, it seems very elementary in some ways, or not. Maybe it seems very upper level hard questions about where you put these things. What have they been teaching me? So what's the point? What do we get out of this? What can I, as an anthropologist who has interviewed you as my participants, get out of this activity? We may, yeah, or we'll probably be much more similar though than if we looked at people in other cultures. Like if I asked all of you, you might have some differences between you based on where you're brought up and your education and your family and your cultural background, but it'd be a lot more similar than if I asked people here, people in Belize, and people in Thailand or something. Yeah.
I guess the real question here is like, when identifying cultural domain, how similar is similar enough or not similar enough?
Yep.
To group people together. Like, take a group, take two groups of people, one group is grouped by age. Are people who are all in their 50s more similar than of different religious backgrounds? More or less similar than people of all different age groups?
Yeah. If only there was a way to test, or in fact, if only there were 6 ways to test. And that's what we're going to do today, right? We're going to see, it's going to allow you this week to, by doing these different techniques, to see, are these groups the same or different, right? Do older people have different conceptual frameworks of the world than younger people? Do people of Latin origin have different conceptual frameworks than Anglo or African American? Do people from Texas have different conceptual frameworks than people in New Mexico? Do Democrats have different conceptual frameworks than Republicans? We don't know, right? These are questions, research questions that we can actually test. And that's what you're going to be doing for your homework this week. You're going to be testing to see if there is similarities or differences between them. All right, so we're going to talk about like 6 different types of cultural domain analyses. The first of these being a free list. So I want everybody to take out a piece of paper. You can use the one I gave you. Try that. We'll do this a couple times. We'll do it like twice just to practice it. Everybody got your paper? So let's do, we're gonna do a couple cultural domain analyses and we will practice with them. So we're going to start with the free list, right? So a free list is just asking people, tell me all the blanks that you know, right? Tell me all the colors that you know. Tell me all the animals that you know. Tell me all the shapes that you know, right? It's pretty simple. It's not like overly complex on the surface, but when you do your analysis of it, it can actually give you quite a bit of detail about what people think. And we'll talk about that after we're done. You would do this oftentimes in kind of an informal interview setting or a more formalized interview setting, right? So you'd often be sitting down either with a person or a group of people. And so we'll kind of run this as like focus group style, right? You are my participants. I'm interested in the cultural domains of the people here at Eastern New Mexico. So I'll explain the activity to you, right? So in this activity, I'm going to give you I don't know, 60 seconds or 90 seconds or something. And I'm going to have you write down all the animals that you can think of. We're going to start with animals. And when you do that, just turn your paper over and just put like the first animal you think of, write number 1, then write the animal. Second animal you think of, write number 2, second animal, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and just do it until time runs out. Ready? Okay, so I'm going to set my timer for 90 seconds. If you get stuck, don't just give up. If I was giving this to you in person, and especially if we were doing one-on-one, and you kind of like put your pencil down or pen, I would say, well, like, can you think of any more? Try to think of some more, right? But because we're doing it in a group, if you get stuck, just keep going. I take a second, maybe think of some more animals. I really don't think that you're going to run out of types of animals that you can think of in 90 seconds. Let me set my timer. And you can begin. Yeah, rate some animals. All the animals you can think of in a list. Ethan's cheating. It's Googling animals.com. I'm just playing. Zoo.com. We're writing down all the animals that we can think of. Yeah. So I'll give you some more time since you just got here. Write down all the animals you can think of, starting right at number 1, write the first animal you can think of, then number 2, the second one, third, fourth, fifth. If you get stuck, just think about it for a moment and then keep going. I'm going to reset my timer. We're going to start if you can. So you can keep working if you're, that way Sam has time to participate. It's 90 seconds back on the clock. All the animals you can think of. Has anyone exhausted their list? Does anybody run out of animals? Okay, but you're still working. Let's give ourselves another minute then. And see if you can come up with a few more. And then we're going to move on to part 2. So 1 more minute starting now. We'll dig deep there. Remember your zoo books. About 30 more seconds. 15 seconds. Dig deep on those penguins and no copies. All right. All done. And obviously you would do it longer if people were still writing. You're not going to cut people off, but you know, this is a class and we got 15 minutes left. So we're going to move on. So there's a couple, you've written a bunch of animals down. There's a couple things that we can do with this to analyze it, right? First thing is, how many animals did you write down? It should be easy because you put numbers next to them. 3. Oh, 33. 3. 39, 33. Megan, how many did you get? The hundreds. 48. Caitlin. 35. Let's say 22. So we got, we can see that there is a range of animals and a knowledge of animals, right? This could be based on recall, you know, like I have a hard time remembering animals, or it could be based on, you know, who you are as a person, right? I'm a zoologist, and so working at the Clovis Zoo, I know lots of animals versus I work at McDonald's and I only know the 3 kinds that end up in our sandwiches, right? So that's something interesting for us as anthropologists, right? We can think about why certain people in our group know more animals than others. We can also compare those animals in our group. So what we're going to do next is we're going to come down to the board, and I want you to write the first, let's say the first 12 animals on your list on the board. So write your name and a line under it, and then write the first animal on your list, your second, your third, your fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. So we have chalk up here. You can all just come to the board, find yourself in space, write it really big. And Jose, my camera is broke on my phone. So when we're done, if you can take a picture of it and send it to me so we can use it for tomorrow's activity. This is good. It's a good practice. It's one thing that when I was a GA, my professor made us to write on the board like we were in like 1800s elementary school, but it's really good. You get nice big bubble letters that everybody can see. Yeah, take a moment, write your top 12 animals. Usually we would do it with all of them, but we're, you know, whoever gets Meg got 48. I don't want to spend the rest of the class writing.
I read all things.
Write it big so you can see it in the picture.
I can't.
I mean, think about like I'm sitting in, Caitlin's sitting right here. The closest that anyone sits in class. I can't see anything. Big, like I can see your name. Yeah, I can see who's there. Right.
You see mine?
I can see Sam.
Yay.
You're writing other words. So write big. So then at least Caitlin. Shark. That's your number 1.
I like to fish.
Yeah, that's good. Now we're going to analyze what, not only what animals you pick, but what order you pick them in as well.
There's no order.
There is an order. You just don't understand it. Like internal working doesn't
I have ADHD. I went from snakes, bullfrogs, bears, a moose, to tiger, puma, leopard, cheetah, lion, cat, dog.
There is a pattern. We'll talk about what those patterns are.
I'm not gonna lie, I started thinking about like games and other things. A lot of it's coming from me.
You want to know the order from 4, 5, and 6?
Single person.
Single pigeon or that. All right, so after writing a couple of sequences, I was like, oh, let's talk about the birds that go to the sea. All right, birds, pigeons. What are pigeons called? Sky rats. Rats.
You can like figure out what's going on. Top 12. But don't go back yet. And so then once you're done, step 2 is reverse the numbers. So the number 1 category gets 12 points. The number 2 gets 11 points. The number 3 gets 12. or 10, 9, 8, 7. So just put next to the animals, just reverse your number. We're going to score these and give them points. You would do this with however many you had, right? So if you had 50, you would just reverse the order. All right. Hang on up there, wait a little day, kids go right. We're gonna give you receipts, but if you definitely can't do it. You'll have to sit up there while we did it.
I'm not sure if I spelled spoiled correctly.
All right, and so the next thing we're gonna do is we'll talk about what you wrote. So Megan, take us through your list. You have moose twice.
That's not the thing.
Boy moose, girl moose.
It's okay, Megan. I almost wrote squid twice in my 40s, so.
We'll start with someone else. Caitlin, take us through your list. Well, Megan.
Okay, so it's actually backwards. I actually started from the end, but so I have lizard.
Lizard was your top choice, or lizard was your 12th choice?
Lizard was my last one.
Okay, so start at number 1.
Tiger.
Tiger is number 1 for you?
Let's start with tiger, I guess.
Yeah. That was your top choice?
That was like 15.
Okay.
So,
So,
but okay,
yeah.
so tiger.
Yeah.
Then I went to shark. Then beetle, cockroach, fly, giraffe, alligator, crocodile, elephant, turtle, Komodo dragon, lizard.
So which one, I'm confused, which one was closer to the top of your lizard or tiger?
Tiger was closer to the original top of
Okay.
the list.
So, yeah, we'll do
Yeah,
it in that
that was
order, right?
sorry.
Because the order matters. What's yours, Megan?
What?
From top of your list to bottom of the list?
That I wrote during that project.
Yeah, yeah, hopefully.
Snake was number 1.
Uh-huh.
Here, 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 here.
Well, I know, like read the people who are over there.
Snake, rainforest frogs, toads, bullfrogs, brown bear, black bear, moose. Tiger, puma, leopard, and then cheetah, because I put moose twice, and all of this should be shifted up. Lion should be like, or tiger should be like, no, lion.
Okay, when you do this for your homework, the order matters, so make sure you do the order. What do you got, Jose?
Shark, alligator, garp, sunfish, catfish, tiger, swordfish, seal, cows, dogs, cat, seal, 8.
I'm not the only one in my mind.
Oh my goodness. How about you,
Oh,
Sam?
wait.
Dog, cat, gorilla, turtle, whale, rabbit, sheep, pig, owls, rodent, and squirrels. I'm not sure if it's possible. Cat is second.
Yeah, dogs and cats.
You
Nobody else
only-
had dogs and cats on their list.
Why do you have dogs and
I
cats?
did.
I own mine.
I'm doing it.
That's so interesting. Keep it.
So do you want me to go through the list, or do you want me to explain my thought process behind it?
Just go through your list first, and then that's the next step that you're gonna explain.
Baboons, whales, starfish, seagulls, pigeons, rats, mice, house cats, dogs, wolves, tigers, and
Okay. So first off, is there any connection in your list? Do we see any of the same terms?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple. And we'll look at those in just a second. So that's what we need to do a good cultural domain analysis, is to have enough people.
what I will say is there's a reason I wrote house cats instead of just cats.
Why? So let's talk about that next. Why are there any patterns that you see on your list? What was your brain doing when you wrote this list?
I want to fish.
Oh, yeah, you were thinking about this going fishing. And so you start off with sharks, right? 'Cause that's at the top of your mind, because you're thinking about fishing. You got a bunch of fish, and then
A tiger and then back to fish.
yeah,
I want to hunt a tiger.
well, yeah. Jose is predator.
Yeah.
And then, so what's your thought process, Caitlin? How did you get that? Or what was your brain doing?
So I think I kind of started with like reptiles, and then for some reason I threw elephant in there, and then went back to kind of reptiles, then giraffe, and then I started going into like bugs. Yeah. And then somehow I ended up at shark and tiger.
That's cool. What'd you get, Megan? How was your
Well,
process?
you brought up the word, and I was still trying to figure out what a word was. So I put snake, and then I was like, okay, snakes are tropical. So then I said rainforest frogs because of the current thing that I saw. And then I was like, well, the kind of frogs that are toads, bullfrogs. Bullfrogs remind me of the countryside. So then I went into bears because there's bear issues in Montana and like up north. And then I put moose because Movies are common in Montana. Don't say anything. I thought I was like, what else could I put in there? And then from moose, I went to tigers, and then I was like, tigers are in the like Sahara, so then I was like, what else is there? And then I put puma, leopard, cheetah, lions.
Cool. So what about you, Ethan?
All right, so. These first two, I was still kind of on that high of that, image that you're showing us. I know baboons weren't in that image, but it's the first name that I could think of. So I wrote baboons and I wrote whales because of that. And then whales, I went to sea creatures, I said starfish. Sea creatures, I went to, sea type birds, so I went to seagulls, birds in general, pigeons, what are pigeons called, sky rats. What are rats associated with? Mice, who chases mice, cats, not just any cat, house cat. The reason I wrote house cat specifically is because I knew that I wanted room for other types of cats later on.
Yeah.
So, who chases cats? Dogs. What are big types of dogs? Wolves. What are big types of cats? Tigers. Now we get into, what do we call
Wizard
The
of
lion.
Oz.
the Wizard of Oz, yes. Lions, tigers, bears, oh my.
I also got into that, but later into my list.
So there's some differences here. There's a couple things that we can do with this. Number one, I think it shows the dangers of pre-testing, right? How many of you were influenced by that picture that I showed you in the and you might have written different answers if I had showed you different things, or you might not have gone to baboon, or you were still on worms versus snakes.
I can tell you for sure baboon would not have been the first.
No,
animal
right.
I said if it was
I
a
think
picture.
probably if I hadn't showed you the list, probably Sam's list might have had more similarities, right? Why would Sam's list be more towards the typical if I hadn't prepped you with those weird pictures? Well, you can see it right here. Why dogs and cats? Why do I think those probably would be the top of our list if I hadn't
Most
primed?
common animals that we interact with.
Yeah, right, because we interact with them more than we do with baboons and sharks and tigers and alligators and things like that. So you have to be careful about like prepping someone for the game because it can influence how the game turns out. The other thing that we can do is we can think about the order that we did this in, and we can correlate this between the people. So look at those scores that you had. I asked you to do the reverse scoring 12 to 1. So which animal has the most points out of all of our list? Try to figure that out. How many points does tiger have? Now you're going to be our scorekeeper over there on the left. Just kind of take those animals that have lots of points and write them in how many total points they have. So everybody can work on this problem together. So,
Right.
yeah, if it's number 1, it gets 12 points. If it's number 2, it gets 11. Let's look and see what we got.
Go backwards, so 1 is 12,
Yeah, 1 is 12.
and just count backwards.
Wait, it's a
Well-
tag that we added.
No, it's just reverse number.
So
So
yes,
your
it's
number
all-
1, the thing that you wrote the very first on your list should get 12
Alright,
points. The second thing you wrote on your list should get 11 points. The third thing should get 10 points,
okay, okay, okay.
which is why the order matters. So what do we got? We got Tiger's got 4 points over here. How many points do you got on your list?
1.
Got 1 point. You got Tiger, so they
Yeah, that's how
8 points.
Does cat count?
Does cat count? What do we think?
No,
I'm
No.
going to say
Cats are
no,
cats.
specifically because I separated off.
I think so.
So do you have a Tiger on here? You have Tiger. You're at 2 points. So how many total points, Maggie? And everybody else can start looking for another animal that's up for
Shark.
Shark, yeah, shark's a good one. So 15 points for Tiger. How many points does shark have? You have it on yours.
14 so far.
You have shark.
Did you have shark?
You have shark. So 14 for shark. What else do we got? What's another high score? Anybody else have dogs? Sam has dogs. You have dogs.
Thank you.
Let's do dogs. You have dogs at 4 points, and you have dogs at 12. So that's 16 for dogs.
I have dogs at 4 points.
4, so 28 dogs. What's cats look like?
That is really
11. Here's 3. Do you have cat? It's
I have
14.
For cats.
14. So 19 for cat. Either of you two have cats on your list?
No.
What else is up there? What? Is tiger up there a lot? You're very at tigers. Tiger's number one. What other animals are common?
We noticed cow on both mine and Jose's list.
Which one? Cow? How many points for cow?
Oh, 4 for Jose and 12.
I'm a little
Cow's fine.
Oh, so 9 for cow.
Oh, yeah, you're right,
Shark. Anybody have alligator?
I get it, sorry.
Not the same. Anybody pick?
You have whales.
Anybody have whales?
Whales, yeah.
How many points for whales?
2,
I have 11 for whales.
I have 2 for them.
2, 8, and 11.
2, 8, and 11. So 21. Whales is our big winner. This, sorry, tigers again. What else is on there? Let's have toads, turtles,
Toad way bigger than most.
sunfish, catfish, a lot of fish, cats,
I like going for toads.
Oh. I have
It's
turtles.
like my good person.
8, gorilla.
But you know. I have the one.
Okay, so those are our big winners. We have just a minute left from that photo day, take a picture, and we'll start on this for next time. What about baboon? We have baboon, we have ape, and we have gorilla. Should those be counted together? What are the pros and cons of counting them together or not? Ape, baboon, and gorilla, which are,
You can't count together.
I'd say, well, thinking about the mindset that I had when making my list, I would not count them together because that could be 3 separate numbers.
but as a researcher, you've collected this data from villagers of Fortalis, and you get these answers back, ape, gorilla, and baboon. And I'm making the score list over here. If I make ape, baboon, and gorilla separately, they all only get 1 point for ape, 12 points for baboon, and where's gorilla? 10 for them, right? So they would all be kind of down in the mid-range. But if I count them together, they would be very high, right? I'd have, what, 12 points, 13 points, plus 20-something points, 23 points. So does it make a difference? This is what we call the lumper and splitter problem, right? You're gonna have to decide, are these things close or are they not close, right? Are apes, because it is a kind, gorilla is a kind of ape, do we count those together? Or do we count those separate? So next time we're gonna play with these a little bit, and we're going to see what we can learn from these categories. So Jose, if you can take a picture, especially of this board over here on the left.
Yeah.
And then
That's the one.
we'll work on it. So that's it for today. I would love to keep going with this fun animal game, but we're out of time. Thanks for coming out. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And probably no one's gonna watch our work, but just.
I have the doodle poll ready for you.
Cool, yeah, send it out.
I did it backwards, so like, you're gonna have to do it backwards too.
Okay,
That's
so
fine.
hang on to your sheets. We'll be working on these again on Wednesday. Thanks so much for coming out to our class today, and I'll see you on Wednesday. Bye.